Good evening, everyone. We welcome you to the IPCF Support Group virtual meeting. Very nice to see you all. Today's session is a special one and a bit different from usual sessions as we have two guest speakers. One, Mrs. Mallika Badrinath, a renowned award-winning Indian food writer, cookbook author, and host of cooking shows. The second speaker is Dr. Avinash, anesthetist and pain management consultant at Curie Hospital. We are also happy that our new guests have joined us in this meeting. Let us begin this session by giving a short introduction about IPCF. What is IPCF? It's an Indian Prostate Cancer Foundation. It's an organization committed to the cause of relieving the impact of prostate cancer in India through awareness and by supporting those afflicted by the condition. It is led by the magnitude of the cause and is led by members of medical fraternity, prostate cancer survivors, their families, and general public. So we have an IPCF support group for prostate cancer patients to realize that they are not alone in their fight against prostate cancer. We are with them in every step of the way, right from detection, diagnosis to treatment and therapy. Indian Prostate Cancer Foundation walks along with the fighters. So IPCF support group meetings has been held every month. So now let's move on to the session. I take immense pleasure in introducing Mrs. Mallika Badrinath ma'am. Mallika Badrinath ma'am, she is an award-winning Indian food writer, cookbook author, and host of cooking shows. She is the author of 29 cookery books in English and 30 books in Tamil, together containing more than 4,000 recipes. Some of her books have been translated into Telugu, Kannada, and Hindi. Her books include the Tamil Sirudhaniya Samayal series containing recipes using traditional nutritious ingredients and millets such as Sirudhaniyangal, Ragi, Kambu, Samai, Tinai, Varagu, Cholam, and Gudarevali. In Chennai, Mrs. Badrinath continued to cook and collect recipes. These included recipes that she has received from her mother and aunt, which she would rewrite into notebooks with variations based on her experience. Soon, she had 10 such handwritten books, including 80 recipes for side dishes. Her husband encouraged her to publish these recipes, resulting in her first book, 100 Vegetarian Recipes, which has been published in the year 1988. To date, she is the author of 32 cookery books and a number of cookery articles. She started to market masalas, that is Indian cooking powders, under the company Mallika Home Products. She continues to write articles related to cooking in magazines like Kumgumam, Kumudam, Mangayar Malar, Snekidi, Porpadam, and Gokulam Kadir. She has hosted cookery shows on Jaya TV, Adupangarai, on every Tuesday in VIP Kitchen and also in Zee Tamil Ancharai Petti on every Saturday. She hosts her own YouTube channel called Mallika Cookery. So such an immense pleasure to invite you, ma'am. So over to you now. So please address the audience.
Hello. Very happy to be with you all today. Just a small correction, ma'am. My YouTube channel is Mallika Badrinath Veettu Samayal. Okay, it is not Mallika's Cookery. Okay?
I'm extremely sorry for that, ma'am.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Anyhow, very happy. I think this is the second time I'm meeting you all. I came to your hospital once. Hope you all remember me. So, okay. Today you gave the heading of boosting immunity with best cooking practices. Okay, of course, everybody know very well about what is immunity, what is health, and what all gives us health and everything. But even though you are all in hospital, doctors are there, patients are there, other public are there, whatever I know little, I want to share with you all. Thanks a lot for giving me an opportunity for talking like this, you know. First thing, we have to start from vegetables. Okay, when we buy vegetables, we don't know the vendors from where they procure and where all it came, the transportation and other things, how many people handled, we don't know. As soon as we bring it, we have to wash it properly. Generally, before and all, we used to wash and dry for some time and then keep it inside. But nowadays, we are very particular to add little salt and turmeric powder and soak the vegetable separately, at least for 10 minutes, and then rinse it again and then dry it for some time. Otherwise, you can use vinegar. There is white vinegar. If you add 1 or 2 teaspoons in a bucket of water or something like that, and soak it for some time, which will remove the pesticides also, the chemicals, extra chemicals which is sprayed on top, and then you can wash it. When you dry it, just outside for an hour or 10 minutes in under hot sun, I think that gets dried, and then you can store it in refrigerator. Okay, this is the first thing what we need now. Next one is our milk packet. As soon as we, morning the bell rings, we expect the milkman to keep the milk packet, and we have to wash it before keeping it in the refrigerator, because so many people they keep it in the refrigerator and then use whenever they want. Okay, wash it properly and then keep it in the refrigerator. That is must. I think everybody do that, even though and even when we are cutting it open with the scissors, many people have the habit of cutting the milk packet and that's hang it. Because the milk also, very much attract microorganism, harmful microorganism, so that we have to wash that scissors also and keep it and hang it. And the vessel also, even though it is washed vessel previous day, and when we keep it inside, it's better you wash it again and then start pouring the milk. When we start with milk, I wanted to share something. Many people I have seen, they boil the complete milk every time when somebody wants coffee or tea or milk. So that is not a very good practice. That is what I feel. So how much ever quantity after boiling, you just keep it. Each time when somebody is coming, you have to take how much ever you want and then use some other vessel for heating it. But always that vessel also, so many people I have seen, they don't wash it. They just keep it, and every time when another person comes, they pour again and again, and then they start heating it. But that is not a very good practice. That is what I feel. Because without knowingly, unknowingly, we do so many small mistakes, that will attract microorganisms, that is harmful microorganisms into our house or kitchen or wherever it is. And another cooking practices, what I have noticed from others is, so many people, after peeling the skin of, before and all, we used to tell them to peel very, without peeling also we can do certain vegetables and all. But nowadays, everybody insists on peeling is must because of the pesticides and other things. And you have to scrape the skin afterwards. After peeling and after cutting, don't put it in water. Again, many vital nutrients, that is vitamins and all, will be lost in the water. And again, the cooking procedure, many people ask me, is it good to use pressure cookers? Will the nutrient loss will be more or something like that? No, pressure cooking, actually, it is the best method. When cooking under pressure, it cooks faster, and nutrient loss is very much less, because the oxidation process, it will not be there. When you boil it in lots of water, again, you have to discard the water, or you have to use it for rasam or soup or your korambu. But it is better to do pressure cooking with minimum sprinkled water, so that we can use it as it is. And washing and soaking rice. This also I have seen lots of people. What they do, they simply pour water and allow it to soak for some time. And before keeping it in the pressure cooker or before cooking, at that time only they will wash again 2-3 times. And then they will start cooking. They will add water and then pressure cook it. Again, the nutrient loss is very much high when you do like this. We have to wash once or twice, or how much ever, depending upon your rice, and then add enough water, how much ever you want for pressure cooking, and soak it in that same water and pressure cook it in that same water. That is the best method for nutrient, to preserve the nutrients in that. Generally, B complex, we need B complex for so many things, and it is a very huge range of vitamins. B complex means from B1 to B18, there are so many vitamins. It is water soluble vitamin. We have to get it. Of course, in India, it is easy to get because we have so many cereals, so many pulses, so many legumes, and anything with skin. It's just under the skin. We have that under the legumes. We have the B complex vitamin. So it is easy to get it in India, even though we can use in our millets and parboiled rice. In everything we get. And again, the practices when you see while pressure cooking dal, we add turmeric powder and very little oil. I would like to suggest you all to add half a teaspoon of fenugreek along with the dal, so that that fenugreek is very good for us. It is one of the main ingredient which our ancestors have given, which has that astringent and bitter taste, which is very, very important for us. But when you add it in the dal, it will not have that bitterness. It will be very tasty. It is an art adding a fenugreek in everything, that fenugreek is having a soluble fiber, which is very good for us, for our bowel movements and all the other things. And it has proven that for diabetes people, when you add fenugreek in so many things, you can manage very well your diabetes. Even before getting diabetes also, when you use fenugreek from childhood, you will not get diabetes. But at least you need at least 2-3 teaspoons. A different this thing we can add in idli rice. We soak fenugreek, and for along with the dosa batter we use fenugreek. And for tatka, that is for seasoning, again we along with mustard, cumin seeds, fenugreek is very much important, because in our anjare petti, what we call it as, we have all the spices which is having lots of medicinal value, which is important for so many body functions in our body to happen. To do all the hormones will function properly. Everything. There are so many things we can say. Fat metabolism for everything. Even a small mustard, it is helpful for the intestine. The peristaltic movements and other things, fat metabolism, it helps. And cumin seeds, again the name itself called seeragam, which is for our cleansing for our body, and lots of things, blood purification, removing toxins, and it all has lots of antioxidants. When you take turmeric powder, nowadays they say even for our kashayam and everything, we started using turmeric powder. The turmeric powder, we all know it has having that curcumin content, which even prevents cancer, and it is proven, and people started taking in the tablet form in other countries. But in our country, we use it for all our cooking. Without turmeric powder, we don't have any cooking at all. And that turmeric powder, you just see whether it is a very good company without any, artificial colors added. And you try to buy a good quality one. That is what very much important, because sometimes when you buy, which is very, very at low cost, it might have some added colors or something. So it is better. We should know which is best for us. Okay, and then our other cooking methods, when we see the selection of vegetables, every day at least we need 5 different kinds of vegetables. Hope you all know that, everybody know that. But each one, instead of saying it in which vitamin in which it is there, we can select color wise. All the different colored vegetables, when you have it in a meal, we will get almost all the vitamins, because vitamins and minerals are very, very important nowadays. Not only nowadays, for in a balanced diet, generally everybody concentrate on macronutrients, that is carbohydrate, fat and protein and other things. But micronutrients are very, very important. Not only vitamins, the minerals also. Almost all the minerals, it has its own function in our body. So we have to select it color wise. And every day from childhood, when we have fruits, it is having lots of antioxidants, and most of the vitamins are there. In different colored fruits, we have different vitamins. Of course, everybody know that. And what we should know is the seasonal fruits we can take. It's better to take our country fruits, our own country, whatever we available, whatever is in the season, that period, which is good for us. And it is better to have very little, that is enough. Some people say, I'm diabetic, I can't take fruit, whichever fruit I can take. So whatever the doctor has given, or your nutritionist or diabetic has suggested for you, that you can take. Again, it is all depending upon your body condition. So that is must. But from childhood, try to give children lots of fruits. They should get used to that. And again, the protein part is very, very important. Being a vegetarian, I have noticed when I wrote the diabetes cookbook, when I was calculating the total days, this thing intake, what I am taking, I saw my protein was very, very less. Around 40 grams also I was not getting. Then only I started, realizing the vegetarian diet, what we are having, that we have to increase our protein in many ways. See, nowadays mushrooms are available. We can include mushrooms, which is of low calorie and very rich in protein. We can include tofu. We can include paneer. In childhood, we can include paneer, but elderly people generally they don't prefer to eat more paneer. Again, different types of dals and legumes, pulses, always compensate, and again greens along with that. When we get give a combination, it is naturally in our this thing. Idli, for example, we take idli. 4:1 parboiled rice and 1 urad when we take along with that 1 teaspoon of fenugreek. I would like to suggest a tablespoon of sago also in this, so that it gives a sponginess to our idli. So that combination gives a amino acid combination. Whatever is in parboiled rice, it's compensated along with that urad dal. When dal and cereal combination when we take, we get complete protein. So many people, they don't know. We are not getting complete protein, good quality protein in our vegetarian diet. It is not so. So we have to every day in our country, what we are having, it is having everything. Only thing, we should know how much to eat, how to prepare it with less nutrient loss. That is what more important. And again, different types of idlis varieties we are having, different types of dosas we are having, chapati, puri, and upma, and many varieties. All the 365 days we can prepare different. That is how our system is we are having. Again, one thing we should concentrate is we are not supposed to get addicted to the taste. We are supposed to know how much is necessary for our body, and we should try to take that. So that is what is more important. And from childhood, the children should made to eat everything. They should taste everything. Try to make them sit when they are around 2 years old, along with the elders, and they should see. And then even if they put it, from the plate outside, or they don't have this thing, properly eating habits and all, it will take some more time. But they should see us and learn. So we should set an example for that. And in our system, we have lots of chutneys and towels. Here, I would like to say which is best for us. There is probiotic value also. I want to say what is probiotics, because probiotics are the food which is having friendly microorganisms. When we take it, goes into the gut, and again, when harmful microorganisms enter inside, this will help to reduce that will not increase. It will prevent that harmful bacteria not to increase in our body. So that is how it manages very well. So again, the probiotic means regular our buttermilk, our curds, naturally from milk, cow's milk is very much important because it is more rich in protein. And from that, when you make curds from in our house, it will have lots of probiotic value. And when it is little sour, again, it has more probiotic value. And there are some prebiotics also. See, for example, sprouts. When you sprout something like fenugreek sprouts or whole green gram sprouts, every alternate day, every day, we should have at least one salad using some sprouts. Okay, when this thing germination happens, again the microorganisms, the friendly microorganisms will be there. When you take it, consume it as a salad, again that friendly bacteria, when it enters into our gut, it helps a lot. And again, that fiber is very important for us because of our bowel practices are very much important, because we have to boost our immunity. We need to flush our toxins. Our toxins are flushed in many ways. We all know how it flushes out in the excretory system. We have to sweat. Nowadays, we don't sweat. Always we are under AC. We don't go outside sun also. So many people, they don't even see. So all these practices are changed when we were young, what we were, and now because of so many other things, we are suffering a lot. That is what we should say. And again, every day one greens, that is keera is must. Again, I have seen lots of people making a mistake. They will chop the keera and then wash it well in a large vessel with lots of water and then they strain it. And again, your vitamin loss is very much more when you do it like that. And lots of people ask me, which is the best method to cook greens? Some people say we have to close the lid immediately. Some people say they open the lid and then cook it. Anyhow, it is going to cook for a very short period. Don't cook the keera for a long period. If it's a masiyal or dal or anything, we can pressure cook it. Or for your other poriyal and all those things, we just fry it, sort it for a very short period. Very little water you sprinkle. And to prevent the oxidation process, to delay the oxidation process, or to preserve the color, we add very little sugar, just very little sugar, that's all. That is more important. And our practices of having different types of rasams as soups in our this thing, again, before and all, everybody used to say, what is there in rasam? What is the nutritional value in rasam? It is just for digestion, that's all now. But now everybody's concept has changed because of reading a lot about our dhania, jeera, pepper, and turmeric powder, and that little bit of tamarind and all those things, about the antioxidants. Not only that, the calcium, iron, and what all we have in that is very much important for us. Okay, and to boost our immune system, we need to take so many other things we should notice. Certain things which commonly everybody do is, after eating a breakfast along with our vegetable or fruits or whatever it is, immediately they will drink a cup of coffee. Again, when you drink coffee immediately after your breakfast, it will prevent the absorption of water soluble vitamins, especially when that contains vitamin B complex and vitamin C. The absorption will not be there, and especially iron absorption also, it will hinder the iron absorption. So that practice and all we should gradually change. So getting nutrients is one way, and the practices what we are having, that is the another thing to preserve the nutrients. And we don't know nowadays in the vegetable, actually what it used to be, now it is not like that, because organically grown vegetables are very less. And before and all, it used to get cooked very fast. Now we need, even for snake gourd, we have to pressure cook it. That is how it is. So the portion of that vitamins and minerals, we should try to get it in the natural way. That the best thing is sprouts. Okay, because when we soak it and when they sprout it in the house, definitely it will have more value than the vegetable what we buy outside. And along with that, when you take it, definitely it will do good for us. And iron rich food is very much important, that all we know, because iron, when those who are anemic, you see they will have palpitation, they can't do work so easily. And without knowingly, that is, when you go and test only, they will say, oh, she's so anemic, only 9%, 10% is there. Lots of youngsters are having this problem nowadays, very common. And for iron absorption, we need vitamin C. That is more important. The role of vitamin C in boosting immune system is very, very, very important. So which is best in our country? When you say, the first thing is gooseberry. Gooseberry is the richest in vitamin C, we all know. And how we can consume gooseberry? The best method, what I say, you buy gooseberry, take the seed and just hit it in a small pestle. You can add it to a rasam. Okay, you can make a tair pachadi, that is raita. Another thing is, you just steam cook it and grate it, add very little salt and lemon juice, and then sun dry it for an hour. It will just get dried fast, and keep it in a bottle. Even though when we dry also, because it has lots of vitamin C, it will not completely lost. Just half a teaspoon, you can just take it and drink some water. Or you can add it to your chutney, your dal, instead of tamarind or tomato. Sometimes we can use gooseberry for your dal or kolambu or whatever it is, along with other vegetables you can add. In the rasam also, at the end, when you just add the one gooseberry, just crush it and add it at the end, or you can grate and add also. Again, it will not, this thing will not be lost that much. And other things what we can use regularly is lemon. Hope you all know. Many people think if they take lemon, it is so acidic, it will not suit for them and all those things. That is not so. So lemon is so good. It will form alkaline ash only, and it is very good for us. Every day we should have something using lemon. You can add it to your curries at the end, or you can drink it as a juice. Any citrus fruit for that matter. Lemon is the best way to add to all our cooking. But apart from that, orange and other things, citrus fruits also is important, we all know, and tomato. And I want to suggest every day one salad. If you can have one salad every day, you can use a cucumber and any watery vegetable. Along with that, some sprouts. Sometimes pomegranate also, it suits very well in your salads. And roasted peanut, and a combination when you give, it is very, very healthy and at the same time very tasty. Or when to have, that is also an important thing, no? Just half an hour, 1 hour before breakfast, when we have a salad, you will get the full benefit, because all the salads, when you munch and eat it properly, and it goes inside, it gets absorbed very fast. Within 20 minutes, the vegetable will be digested and absorbed into the bloodstream. When you take it along with your cooked food, again, the time delays. And when one cooked food, when raw food, everything is together, again, there is a gas formation and so many other things are there. And for all those things, we are only responsible. Okay. And another thing is, many people, we start buying sambar powder, rasam powder, everything from outside only. And we should be very careful when we are buying, because so many companies we have seen, they use very low quality and they add color to their powders to make it attractive. But it's better, to avoid certain things. It's better when you can do it in the house, which is very tasty. Of course, we are all helping in our channels. We are giving correct measurements and other things. Okay. And using mint, coriander, and that is curry leaves, everything is very important raw, because in chutney we can use. I'll tell you one probiotic drink that is, which I prepare regularly. Grind one gooseberry, a handful of mint, and curry leaves and coriander leaves, along with a little bit piece of ginger. And if you have raw mango, a small piece of mango, you grind everything together. Add little sour buttermilk and enough salt and asafoetida, and you prepare a very thin buttermilk. Okay, it is a very good probiotic drink, and you strain it, and then whenever you want, you can have throughout the day, even at around 11 o'clock when somebody feels so hungry. Even if you are a diabetic patient, even if you are a cancer patient, even if you are any other patient, this will be suitable. Only thing, if you are a kidney problem patient, you should know potassium and sodium, how much ever is allowed, and how to do it, how to take it. That is what very important. Apart from that, our body, there are so many foods which is cooling. That is, it reduces the heat of the body. And it is not in the science. Okay, scientifically, it is not, they haven't given anything, but our ancestors given a lot. For example, fenugreek is very much like that, and our buttermilk, and our pazhasor, that is leftover rice, and the wash, when you add water and keep, next day, that niraharam, what they call. Generally, many people, they use only the cooked rice which is under, and they remove that water. But that water is very much alkaline, which is very, very important. And that water, along with soaked sabja seeds, when you drink regularly, when you can feel the difference in you, it reduces that heat from your body. Many people, they may not like to have some sathukudi juice or sweet lime juice or something like that. For them, this is very much ideal. Even the rice washed water, second washed water is there, no? First washed water, we pour it off, and second washed water, when you take it, it is very rich in B complex, and you can mix that with niraharam and then take with sabja seed soaked. It is really good. And lots of gums and gels are very much useful. We all know badam pisin. When you soak it, and everybody know about jigardanda and about that badam pisin. It gels a lot. That is very much important again for the body. And why I'm telling all these things, when you have anybody is having cancer or anything, they feel that heat because of the tablets and other radiation, other so many things. They need to take something like that, so which will not aggravate the heat in your body. So when you are very careful about all those things, definitely I think you'll be able to manage very well. Some say the application of coconut oil in hands kill coronavirus. I don't think so, ma, because coronavirus nowadays, it is very much powerful than any other virus. 30 times more powerful than any previous virus. So you have to be very careful. But generally, when you go out where there is no water, you can use sanitizer. But otherwise, I don't suggest to use sanitizer in the house, because again, that is also a chemical which we don't need in our hands. It's better you wash with soap. We always have a tap. We have water, enough water. It is better to wash with soap. Applying coconut oil, I don't think that will prevent. Because they think the coronavirus, it is they have that spiral shaped virus and it sticks wherever it is and it protrudes. But it is a very, very powerful virus. It mutates a lot, and that's why they are still not able to find any this thing for that. And better boost our immunity from childhood. That is very much important. Second thing is, now at this season, what we should do, we can use many things in our kitchen to prepare different kashayams, which is useful. So boosting immunity from childhood is one thing, and this one, it will prevent that multiplication will not happen. Not only this virus, I'm not particularly want to tell about this virus. There are so many other microorganisms, other viruses, other bacteria, harmful ones. When they enter, immediately when we catch cold, we have cough, when we get fever, and everybody, we are getting scared, So these kashayams are meant for that. Of course, Kabasura Kadinir, government is telling everybody to take. Many people, they say when they take continuously, they are having that feeling that heat. So again, there is a limit for everything. But one or two kashayams which I say, which is really good, I will tell you. You just take a lemon, cut it into two and squeeze the lemon juice, keep it separately. Rest of that with the skin, you just cut it into 4 or into big pieces. Heat for 1.5 tumblers of water, I'm suggesting 1 lemon. And a small piece of ginger, half-inch piece of ginger. You just crush the ginger, add it in the water and the lemon pieces and turmeric powder and little pepper. Again, crush the pepper, add it to that and then boil it for some time. And strain it. If you are not a patient who is supposed to avoid sodium, you avoid salt. Other salt, you can add a pinch of salt and that pepper powder. And this kashayam, along with turmeric powder and lemon and all those things, it's really good. It doesn't do any harm. And after straining, you can squeeze whatever that lemon juice you have squeezed and kept, that you can add. That is really helpful. This one we can even, anybody can drink morning or evening, both the times you can have. And many more kashayams, which is suggested nowadays is, one is our betel leaves, Vetthalai kashayam, and mint, Pudina kashayam. Pudina kashayam we have been using for so many years, which is really helpful. Just a handful of Pudina, you just boil it in water and then strain it, add salt and pepper, and you can drink it very hot. So it soothes your throat and that small irritation or cough when you have, it will go. And another thing I always suggest everybody is cabbage. So cabbage, how we can take? Just cut it into a little big piece, add it in the small mixie. When you just use the pulse mode, it will become, fine shreds. And add salt and pepper to that. Take it in a bowl, eat little by little, so that you can feel immediately a relief from your cold or cough. Another thing is cabbage. You can make it as a soup. Just boil along with that water. If you want, you can add a pinch of turmeric also, along with the boiled the pieces, the cabbage water with salt and pepper, fresh pepper. It is always good, and you can drink it very hot. And for children who are very young, you can just strain it, add that, give that water alone. It is really good. You can make them drink. Another one is steaming, cabbage steaming. How I do the cabbage steaming, cut cabbage into fine pieces, put in a bowl of water, close with the lid, and just allow that to boil, and reduce the flame after some time. And when it starts boiling, just allow that to keep it in the for some time, and then take it out. Use your bed sheet to cover, and open the lid with carefully, using your tongs or other towel, not completely, very little, and start inhaling. One side you inhale, bring it out this side, and this side again you take it in there. And again, that kebab, that the phlegm when we have, even if it is very thick, it comes out. Okay, these things are all very much handy tips which we prepare, which I've been using for so many years. And of course, our ancestors given lots of things. We even a pepper, small pepper, we just put it in a small needle and just show it on the fire, and it will have, we can inhale that. Again, it relieves immediately. And a turmeric also, the root what we have in our house, that long one, using a tongs, you just keep it on a direct flame. Again, that flame comes, you can use it. And I have seen, when we were young, when after childbirth, what they do in our house is that drying the hair, using, they will keep that coal, that burning hot coal. They add turmeric powder, and then that garlic outer skin, they add both. So when we inhale that, definitely we will not catch cold, and it will do so much good to us. That is a practice which our ancestors have been following for so many years. Now nobody is following. Anyhow, I remember all these things. And another thing what is available in the house is tulsi leaves. That is, holy basil is one. Another one is sweet basil. Sweet basil is our Tinnuti Patri. Both are very good for this. And even betel leaf kashayam, any combination you can give for kashayams. And the main thing what we can add in that is, the main thing is ginger and turmeric and pepper. Other things you can add cinnamon, clove, and there are so many anti-acids, that is not antioxidants, which is the spices which we have in our house, which is very good. You can add, each day you can prepare different kashayam, and which way we can have. That is good. Another thing is our Sembarati Kashayam, what we call it as, now they call it as tea. That is hibiscus tea and rose petals tea, the pink rose petals. That also you can have, like a gulkand also we have. Those who are diabetic and those who don't want to eat gulkand, they can have, because it's a blood purifier. You can take it in the form of tea. Because I have seen in Japan, they dig, it is very, very famous, that rose, that unopened bud, which they dry it and give it. That tea is very, very famous. And again, jasmine tea is there. There are so many these herbs we use. Even in Sri Lanka, I have seen that flowers, what we call it as, which is diabetic friendly, avarampu tea. That is really good, even controlling diabetes. And the tea is very good for us, for, to take out the phlegm and other things. There are so many other things also which we can, if you can follow, we'll be able to, I think this virus time, this will also cross and go. One thing which I follow is, in a bottle, you add turmeric powder and water. Just take one mineral water bottle and just put few holes on top. Turmeric powder and that water just mix very well. Just sprinkle all over the house, outside also, and inside also, every day before mopping or any time. When you do this as a practice, the turmeric is very good for us. This way also we can do. And another thing, when in villages and all, we have seen, they use cow dung for, you know, because it is mud floor, they used to have the cow dung. That cow dung, you know, it will never allow any microorganisms to grow in that. The same thing with turmeric also. Turmeric also is very good. It will not allow any microorganism, that is harmful microorganism, to develop, that is to increase in that this thing. So we can do that. And if I keep talking, I have lots of things I'll be talking. But main thing, just to do, you know, rounding up, removing toxins regularly from our body is very, very important. Excretory system, it should function properly. And for that, we have to drink water properly from childhood. And our exercise is very important, walking or yoga or whatever this thing. And every day, at least some half an hour to 45 minutes, we should spend time for ourselves. That is important. And our food, which is very, very important, diet is very important. You should try to have a balanced diet. And when I say in our own Siddhargal, what they said, it is that 6 days, 6 சுவை உள்ள உணவு எடுத்துக்கணும். 6 சுவை உள்ள உணவுல கசப்பும் துவர்ப்பும் இப்போ அறவே மறந்துட்டோம். We should take that. And our body, it is divided as 3 types, you know, Vata, Pitta, Silottama, or that is Kapha body. So they have given which is suitable for each one. When we avoid certain things which is not suitable for that particular type of body, and we can, you know, always we have to avoid it. That is the theory what they have given. Of course, I don't want to go very deep in that. But only thing I want to tell is try to eat slowly. Whatever food we are eating, slow and steady, at least 30 times munching is very much important, they said. And why that is, nowadays we are not following it. But even if I try, you know, I am able to chew for 25 times also, I'm feeling difficult because we are so used to that. But see, the God has given the taste in the food. 6 tastes are there, and our tongue can identify all the 6 tastes. That is, front portion is sweet, that bitter is at the end, and astringent, and you know, each and every taste is separately, you are able to feel it. When you mix saliva and then eat, just release all the 6 tastes should be from our food. And when you release and eat, then when saliva is mixed, one is carbohydrate digestion takes place with the help of saliva, that is 60 to 80% digestion takes place. Another thing is enzymes. All the enzymes, important enzymes which is necessary for our bodily, that is the inner this thing, அகச்சுரப்பிகள் வேலை செய்வதற்கு, ஹார்மோன்கள் உற்பத்தி ஆவதற்கு, எல்லாத்துக்குமே enzymes are very important. We need nearly that is 300 enzymes or something like that. So when we one practice is this. Another thing is having millets. When you eat millets, which is having soluble fiber and insoluble fiber, both these enzymes, you know, we get more enzymes. அந்த என்சைம் சரியா இருந்தா தான் நம்ம பாடியில எல்லா ஃபங்க்ஷனும் சரியா நடக்கும். அந்த மாதிரி we have to take it. Again, millets, that ragi, cool ragi kanji and all we take, no, that is very good. We all know again the probiotic value about that, and how easily it gets digested, and all those things are there. But other millets, cooking millets is an art. You should know how to cook it. If you want to know, I will tell you. Because so many people, they think the pressure cooking is must, and then it becomes like a gum. We are not supposed to pressure cook any millet, and we have to use enough water, and just you know, for a thinai we need 4.5 cups water, samai 3 to 3.5, varagu again 3, that is kudiraivalli we 2 to 2.5, something like that. Just boil water. Just no need to soak the millet also, because even 2 to 3 hours if you keep, it will not get soaked. So when the water starts boiling, you just wash the millet and then add it, close the lid, and reduce the flame completely, and allow that to absorb completely. And it will get absorbed by 7 minutes, 10 minutes, depending upon the quantity. Completely reduce flame. Don't mix it in between, because again it becomes like a cool. Okay, don't mix it in between. Completely reduce flame. When we cook it, it comes out wonderfully well. We can you know, replace at least one meal. Instead of rice, we can have this millet, any one of the millet. It is very good. Of course, for weight reduction also it is helping. And we can't eat more. We have to eat very little millet. Less is important. Enough, that is enough, because it stays for longer period, 4 to 4.5 hours also, we will not feel hungry. So try to use millets more often. We all know our farmers, when we start using more, they will be able to cultivate more, and it will be useful for them because it doesn't need much water to grow, and it will grow within a short period than rice. Rice will take at least 120 days, but millets, it will take very, very less period with less water. And we have to encourage, when we start using more millets, we can prepare all the varieties. There are lots of varieties which we can prepare, which is tasty also. Only thing, color-wise, it will not like rice is whitish in color. It will not be that much whitish. But once you start using it, it is an art. I can tell, if you have questions, I will just tell. I think with this, I think I have spoken enough. If I start talking, it will be more. You can ask your questions.
Yes, ma'am, we got many questions, ma'am.
Yeah,
And
please.
yes, and we will not. Yes, ma'am. So I think we will not take much of it, ma'am, because our chat box is flooded with many questions, ma'am, and no one want to leave you, ma'am, so fast. So I will just taking few questions, ma'am, from there.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. So first question is, ma'am, how much fenugreek to be taken in empty stomach?
How much?
How much fenugreek,
Fenugreek.
ma'am? Fenugreek seeds, yes.
Half a teaspoon is enough, ma. Half a teaspoon when you soak overnight, and then when you consume it in the morning, that is enough. But each time before meal, if you want, without soaking also, you can have half an hour before your meals, half a teaspoon to 1 teaspoon. Just put the fenugreek seeds in your mouth and drink 1 tumbler of water. That is enough. Every day, at least the totally 2 to 3 teaspoons. If you are able to take, that is fine. Or otherwise, at least 1 teaspoon is enough. Like this, and others, we can use in our cooking. When you have a regular practice of adding it in our food, I don't think we need that much.
Okay, ma'am. So our next question is from Dr. Savita, ma'am. She is asking, is olive oil be used for cooking? Now we have some brands advertising that can be used for cooking, or only we can use for salad dressing.
And generally, olive oil, we use it only for salad dressing, ma. Because it's monounsaturated fat, we don't prefer that for cooking. But in advertisements in India, because eating salads is very much less, people, they advertise even for deep frying and they advertise, but that is not necessary. But if you are asking me, I would like to say our sesame oil is very much far better than that oil. It has lots of more nutritional value. That is chekku nallana. It is really good. For salads, it is very good.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you for answering the question. So
Yes,
our next question is, ma'am, from Budhan sir. He is asking that, madam, it is said that jackfruit has low glycemic index and it is good for diabetics as it's highly nutritious. As it has high fiber content, what is your opinion?
No, I have seen practically jackfruit, even though glycemic index is very less, it is very, very sweet in taste. Definitely, it will shoot up diabetes. I can't take it at all. Jackfruit, it will shoot up your diabetes. Other persons, they can take 2 or 3 pieces, that is okay. Even though it is rich in fiber, I don't think, yeah.
Yes, we should follow that. Ma'am, next question is from Vivo 1905. He's asking that does salad causes bloating sometime?
Bloating,
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, again, the eating method is very much important. As I said, when you eat it very, very slow, you will not have that bloating effect. And when you are not used to high fiber diet, and suddenly when you start taking fiber diet, the body takes some time to get adjust to that. For that, what we should do is first, initially, you are not used to taking something high fiber diet like that, salads and all, especially sprouts and other things. First, try once in a week, and afterwards twice in a week, and get used to. Then you start taking it every day. I take every day, one day fenugreek sprouts and another day that is moong dal sprouts. That fenugreek sprouts also, I want to tell you all how the bitterness we can reduce. Of course, I have shown in channels also. Then I'll share it with you all. After sprouting this fenugreek, I just keep it in the refrigerator in a box for a few days. I use it at least up to 1 week. It stays good. Take a handful, add fresh coconut and sesame seeds and flax seeds. You can add it to that, and peanuts. Along with that, a few almonds and walnuts. Wholesome meal itself. It will serve you all the vitamin E and mainly iron and protein. It's very good for us. And try this, no, anti-aging. Every alternate day or every day also we can take fenugreek sprouts. It will control your diabetes, heart problem, and everything. And we feel very active throughout the day. And because of that protein, that brain function takes properly. That amino acid combination is very good, and it does good for us. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am, for attending the question.
Yes, ma'am.
Our next question is, Madam, daily tea with spices is recommended to boost our immunity. What are the ingredients of spices that can be homemade to make good masala tea to boost our immunity? And how many cups per day you recommend?
For masala tea means generally we add dry ginger. That is sukku. Sukku is very best. And you can use cardamom, and you can use cinnamon, a few pieces of clove. See, there is a combination of spices which you can prepare for the masala tea. You can dry roast and powder it, and you can keep it in a bottle. Add it along with your tea, like masala tea. You can add it. Along with that, nowadays we start telling turmeric powder. We generally use that panangalkande, powder it, and then you can add it to that, and you just mix it and keep. Again, that palm candy is very much good. If you can reduce sugar, you can add that all those things. I think that is better.
Sure, ma'am, we can do that. And ma'am, we will take another last question, and that is from Wasik sir, Wasik Ahmed. His question is, I noticed eating millet produced heat in the body. Is it true? How much amount they can eat millet?
No, that is ragi and kambu. It will not produce heat, ma. It is good only. Okay. I don't think it produces that much heat as you say. Millets and all. The way, how much quantity we use, that is also very much important. See, we have seen people selling ragi kur and kambu kur throughout summer. When you go down south, even the roadside, they used to say. When, see, for example, ragi kur, when you mix it with water, and then they keep that, allow that to, ferment for some time. That day evening only, again they will boil, and again they will keep it. Next day morning only, we add onions and buttermilk and salt and other things. When you allow that to ferment, that much heat will not produce. Okay. It becomes alkaline, and it's very good. Always we should follow this thing as acidic alkali balance. See, all our cereals, millets, and pulses and legumes are acidic by nature. Fruits and vegetables are alkaline by nature. We have to combine 2/3 of the alkaline things and 1/3 of the acidic foods in such a way to keep the balance in our body. For that only we need to take like cucumber and any other watery vegetable of the season, like white pumpkin, yellow pumpkin, and so many things we have, mullangi, radish, and all those things. And you combine wisely, and you take, nothing will happen. Acidic alkali balance, when you take it, when you do it properly, your body, you will not feel that. Okay, you can use fenugreek every day along with your buttermilk. It will reduce. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for taking all the questions. And we have few questions left till now. And I just take all the phone numbers from them. And I told them, if possible, we will just definitely reply them back personally. Yeah. And any question they can ask us later also. We will get back to you, ma'am, with questions. And thank you for helping us a lot. And you took us on the old days, ma'am, and where we asked to use all the traditional things. And thank you, ma'am, for like remind all of that. And
thank you, ma'am. Actually, I thought of telling still more lots of things, but there is no time.
Sure, ma'am. We will arrange another like forum like this because we are getting some feedbacks also.
Yes.
People want more things they want to know and more your inputs we are expecting, ma'am.
Yeah.
So surely we will arrange like this session, ma'am.
Okay.
And thank you so much for giving us time for your busy schedule and helping us to arranging like this program.
Yes,
We are very
madam.
much thankful and grateful for you, ma'am. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
thanks a lot, ma. Thanks a lot, ma.
Thank you, ma'am. So we
Other
are going
this
to
one,
our
I
yes,
can see
ma'am.
here that
Yes,
the
ma'am.
doctor. It's,
Yes, ma'am. You can see our next program. So we are going
Yes,
to
ma'am.
our next program, ma'am.
Okay, I'll stay
In
here.
our second session.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. So I am taking immense pleasure to introduce Dr. Avinash sir. Dr. Avinash is a renowned anesthetics and pain management specialist of Curie Hospital. He has 2 years of experience in cardiac anesthesia at Sims Hospital under Dr. Bashi. He further pursued his pain management fellowship at Mumbai Pain Clinic, India. And further, he worked in Apollo Proton Cancer Center in Pain and Palliative Care Department. Now, Dr. Avinash, sir, address us on introduction of pain management. So, over to you, sir. Kindly give our brief introduction on pain management.
Good afternoon to one and all. I'm Dr. Avinash here, anesthetist and intervention pain management specialist, consultant at Curie Hospital. It's having immense pleasure in meeting you all and talking to you about the pain management as a specialty and how interventional pain management is a growing and upfielding field and is going to help you all. So, what is pain? So, pain is defined as an unpleasant sensory and emotional experience associated with actual or potential tissue damage or described in terms of such damage. So we divide pain into acute and chronic pain. Pain that extends beyond the expected period of healing or more than 2 weeks is defined as acute pain. So acute pain is a normal sensation triggered in the nervous system to alert you to possible injury and the need to take care of yourself by the causes of the occurrence such as traumatic injury, surgical procedures or medical disorders. So coming to chronic pain, it is as a disease. So chronic pain, we consider it as a disease because chronic pain often lives out its original causes, worsens over time and takes a puzzling life cycle. So therefore, it increases the evidence over time and untreated pain can lead to chronic pain, which is a very hard phenomenon and it leaves everyone in situ. So even more disturbingly, the recent evidence suggests that prolonged pain actually damages the parts of the brain, including those involved with the cognition. So there are a few facts about pain, chronic pain management. If you see the data in United States, among the number of sufferers compared to diabetes, coronary heart rate disease, which includes heart attack, chest pain, stroke, as well as cancer, chronic pain sufferers are the maximum in the United States. And this data is being shared worldwide and worldwide data is similar too. Further, the total annual cost of healthcare due to chronic pain ranges from $560 billion to $635 billion annually. All these people spend this amount for chronic pain management. Next entity is peripheral pain and central pain. What exactly is peripheral pain? Peripheral pain originates in muscles, tendons, etc., or in the peripheral nerves themselves. Whereas chronic pain arises from a central nervous system pathologies such as a primary central nervous system dysfunction, or some of them may arise due to maladaptive thought processes through psychogenic pain. But most of it is due to structural changes in the central nervous system. Example, spinal cord injury, multiple sclerosis, stroke, and epilepsy. So coming to the pain management. So pain management and interventional pain therapy is a super specialty of anesthesia. What we deal is, this branch deals with all kinds of pain along with other specialists, such as orthopedician and general physician, urologist, oncologist. So apart from the pharmacotherapy, this branch treats patients with other modalities of pain treatment. And is it better to tolerate pain? That's the main question here. this is a very common idea that it is better to tolerate pain than the treatment of pain itself. That's why even extreme pain is often not considered important enough by us, even by the healthcare professionals, to require immediate action. After all, pain is not going to kill you, right? So that's a common entity which everyone has. But unrelieved pain has consequences. So timely intervention of pain is a must. And interventional pain management deals with that, where we approach the doctor initially for the pain. We are there and the doctor evaluates us, and finally he enrolls a program for you, assesses the reason, the diagnosis, and then we have a scheduler protocol for your management of pain. So coming to the next, what are the effects of pain? What does it do to us, and what does it do to our body? So the pain decreases the length of survival initially. The sympathetic stimulation and consequences are drastic due to pain. Healing is actually delayed. There are adverse effects on our immune system. It lowers our body's ability to respond to stressful situations such as surgery, chemotherapy, and psychological stress. Acute pain becomes chronic pain if it's not treated timely. So eventually it leads to psychological disturbance, and even in extreme cases it leads to suicides because of the pain which people are unable to tolerate. So next comes to the modalities of pain management. Initial modality of pain management is pharmacotherapy, which is opioids and non-opioid analgesics, anticonvulsants, antidepressants, etc. Next is physical therapy, which along with a certain amount of pharmacotherapy, we help with some physiotherapists who help in rehabilitation processes. Next comes to nerve blocks. Nerve blocks are central neuraxial blocks like epidural, peripheral nerve blocks, root blocks, and plexus blocks, ganglion blocks, and even permanent neurolysis for chronic patients like cancer patients and the treatment of spastic CP. And advanced modalities are present, which is the intervention therapy like radiation, radio frequency thermocoagulation ablation, ablation of a specific nerve which supplies the organs which causes the pain in case of cancer pains. And further, yeah, we do have prolotherapies, and then acupuncture, yoga, meditation. All these are parts of the pain therapies. So when you come to a pain clinic, how an organization happens in a pain clinic. An ideal pain clinic, what we have is we have all the modalities of pain treatment. Apart from the pain therapist, the pain specialist, there are other specialists also along with them, a physiotherapist and a rehabilitation specialist also. So it's a teamwork and a collateral approach from all of us helps in alleviating your pain. That's how the collaborated effort of the pain clinic. So next entity is the interventional pain management, which I come to. Intervention pain management, the term seems very elaborate and detailed. What exactly is intervention pain management is? We perform some minimally invasive procedures which gives permanent or long-term pain relief. It fills the gap between pharmacological management of pain and more invasive operative procedures too. So interventional pain management are a group of procedures with different mechanism of actions. We deliver drugs in target specific areas. So what essentially is, when a patient comes to us with, for example, any upper abdominal pain due to some cancer, we evaluate the patient, what entity it is, or what is the etiology, or what is causing the pain for them, which organ or which part of the body is mainly affected due to pain. And then there are certain nerves and group of nerves supplying the specific organ. So we reach that particular point, we go there and then we give target specific nerves. We reach that nerves with the help of various other CM, ultrasound guidance, image guidance techniques. We reach there and we administer certain drugs which alleviates the pain. So that's the mechanism of this intervention pain management. So it aims to correct the pathology as well as blocking of nerve signals which corrects the neuropathy. So interventional pain management is a super specialty of the medical specialty as well as anesthesia, and is devoted to decrease or eliminate pain with use of invasive and non-invasive techniques. This can be accomplished in the following ways. It interrupts the pain signal along a neural pathway. It helps in remodeling of the anatomical source of pain, that is where the pain is originating from. Next is with the help of implantable devices like there are some devices where they delivers drug continuously to the patients in advanced case of cancer, chemo, when patients on terminal stage which requires any palliative therapy. And what are the various conditions that we treat in a pain management clinic? It can range from normal back pain. This can be caused due to slip disc, sciatica, lumbar radiculopathy, or due to disc herniation, or a facet joint arthritis, sacroiliac, or a failed back surgery case. Next comes the neck pain. Neck pain leads to cervical radiculopathy, cervical disc bulge, cervical facet arthritis, and all those. Neck pain also is which are very chronic pain, which a lot of people in the IT fields come regularly to our clinic asking us to, because of prolonged sitting, they do have neck pains continuously. So we do treat them accordingly. Next is a nerve pain. Nerve pain, it deals with the reflex sympathetic dystrophies, complex regional pain syndromes, where a total part of the body is having pain continuously. These can be treated too adequately and with a timely intervention. Next is musculopercutaneous pain like fibromyalgia, arm, shoulder, elbow, your chest. All these muscles supplying those part of the body do have pain, and we find out the origin of the pain, and then we can do accordingly the particular process of treatment modalities. Next is the cancer and other kinds of pain, which is chronic and long term. Along with chemotherapy, radiotherapy, patients do again have pain because of the chemotherapy and radiotherapy also, and then we address them accordingly. So what are the various interventions that we can perform for these kind of procedures and conditions which I told you? So injections are usually image guided, such as fluoroscopy. Fluoroscopy is nothing but a C-arm which is kept in an operation theatre setup, and with the help of the C-arm, we reach a particular part with bony landmarks like the spine, for example, spine, where the patient comes with the low back pain. We keep them over there, and then with the help of a C-arm guidance, we reach the particular bone. That's the spinal cord, spine bone, and then we reach there, and then we reach the point. Next is radiofrequency ablation. Radiofrequency ablation is ablating ganglionic nerves such as trigeminal, celiac, splanchnic, hypogastric, as well as DNG ganglia. So minimally invasive procedures such as the spine procedure can be done too. So interventions that are commonly done at the pain clinic are nerve blocks such as occipital, trigeminal, vagus, brachial plexus, and other glossopharyngeal too. Then there are ganglion blocks, Gazillion ganglion, stellar ganglion, celiac ganglion. Then autonomic nerve blocks at the lumbar sympathetic. Then the epidural, subarachnoid. Then advanced interventions like spinal cord stimulation. Then trigger point injections and ligamental joints too. And I just want to give a brief and detailed about epidural too, because epidural for people come commonly with back pain as well as neck pain. A lot of people suffer who's working in the IT or prolonged sitting. They do come with various problems. So epidural injection is very helpful for those patients, and it is timely and early intervention is very, very helpful and essential. So epidural interventions, the indications are headache, neck pain, reflex sympathetic dystrophy, a permanent block for cancer pain, myofascial pain, a disc prolapse, as well as radiculopathy. So this is something brief I said about the introduction about the pain management, intervention pain therapies. But this forum being a Indian Prosthetic Cancer Forum, I would like to give a few more gist about how is managing pain in advanced prostate cancer is going to help you, and how is it going to help in our clinic like this pain clinic setup, and how we can help you too. So coming to the prosthetic cancer, not all men with advanced prosthetic cancer have pain. Men who do not have pain experience different levels of pain. So pain is more common in men whose cancer has spread to their bones. If the cancer has spread to several parts in our body, you may not get the pain in all these places, essentially. So what causes the pain? So we feel pain when our bones, muscles, organs, nerves, or any other parts of our body are damaged or irritated. So cancer which has spread into these areas might cause pain. Sometimes pain can be due to cancer treatments as such too, like I told you, radiotherapy or or chemotherapy too. So pain can be caused by problems not linked to cancer, such as an infection. So we need to evaluate the cause. So coming to bone pain, if the prostate cancer spreads to your bone, it can damage or weaken the bone, which may cause pain. For example, if there's metastasis to the spine, it can cause weakening of the spine and it can cause pain. And it may lead to compression of a specific part or of a nerve, which can cause radiating pain too. So we need to evaluate how it is, and we need to go for a further scan, like a PET CT or an MRI, and then to find out if there's a metastasis. So bone pain is very specific feeling. Some men describe it as a feeling which is similar to a toothache, but in the bones, or a dull aching pain or stabbing. It can get worse over time when you move, when you walk, or when you try to touch it, it becomes very tender. So each man describe the pain in a different way. Next is neuropathic pain or the nerve pain. So nerve pain is caused by the damage to a nerve. For example, if the cancer pain presses on our nerve, as I told you, or a compression of a specific nerve. So the outer layers of the bone contain nerves, and the neuropathic pain can be a part of the bone pain too. The pain can come and go, and people have described as a shooting pain, as a stabbing pain, or a burning or a tingling pain. So for some people, the damaged area feels very numb. So sciatica is the most common type of referred pain in such advanced prostatic cancer. It is caused by damage to one or more of the nerves that start in the spine and run down through the legs. People feel sciatica as pain, numbness, weakness, pins and needles or tingling kind of pain with the lower back, buttock, legs, or the lower limbs completely. So how much pain might I have? So one might have a question similar. So what we ask is, where is the pain? What's causing the pain? How soon you should appear to a doctor, and so that they can manage the pain. Then finding the right pain relief for you. Taking the right amount of pain relieving drugs at the right time. How tired do you feel? How well are you feeling in general, your general condition? Then if you feel very anxious because the pain is there, and or if you feel very depressed. So these are a few forums which we ask when you come to a pain clinic and how we assess you. And further, we go into assessment of your pain. We ask, where is your pain? How bad it is? How does it feel like? Like, is it like a stabbing pain when someone's like stabbing you, or is it a dull aching pain, to differentiate what kind of pain it is? And next comes to, when does the pain occur? How often did you get the pain? So does it disturb your sleep cycle? Are you able to sleep in the night peacefully? Does anything help you? Like any other activities like standing, like stretching, or just flexing your lower body, does it help you? Then have you tried any other pain relieving medicines? Which has it helped you, and how much is it? And does anything make it worsen? And how does your pain how do you feel because of the pain? Are you feeling very anxious? And overall your scoring. We have a visual analog scale, VAS scale. Out of grading of 0 to 10, we ask you, how much do you rate it? Based on your scaling, we'll just go ahead with the management and the protocols. So what we do is, we follow a WHO, that's World Health Organization step ladder approach to every pain management. Initially, we start with opioids, and we start with normal medications. Then we go with the non-opioids. Then we go with next level, non-opioids. Then a combination of these drugs. If all these don't work, we evaluate you simultaneously, and then we go for any interventional procedures. So further, we might have any pain relieving drugs. Yeah, pain relieving radiotherapy, radiofrequency thermocoagulations. These are all neuromodulation procedures, or transcranial electric nerve stimulations. And with the help of these procedures, we'll require a physiotherapy to further help you to maintain your life cycle and the balance. So I think that's it for the day. I don't want to go in detail. This is just a brief introduction to pain management and what a pain clinic can do and how can it help you. And you can always come forward to our clinic. And because pain is an entity which is very common in every one of us. We do experience pain, but we just leave it and we don't evaluate it completely. Evaluation of the pain is a must. We need to go to a specific specialist and find out what the disease is, where does it come, because pain as such it's no more a symptom, and rather it's defined, it's considered as a disease. So it is very helpful and essential for each one of us to evaluate the pain, the cause, and accordingly we need to approach a pain specialist. You can come forward to us, or you'll have someone in your family, your friends who are experiencing that, but just not going with the correct modality or the correct intervention and thereby suffering due to pain. So we should not allow people to suffer due to pain. So please do come to us, and you can have a consultation with us too, and further you'll have a better idea. So thank you all. Any questions you can ask us.
Thank you so much for sharing your input, sir.
Yeah.
So we have few questions, sir. I am going to ask. So our first question is from Aruna Abdul, madam.
Yeah.
So she's telling that she is having pain behind the left knee for more than a month. So for that, she is taking Hefinet and Kymodal for pain. And this subsidized her temporary pain, but it started again. After doses, it's again stopped. So should she consult with any ortho doctor or anesthetics? That is a question.
So initially, she can come to us. This, as I told you, it's a collaborated department where we do have orthopedicians also. So we will evaluate you initially. We will examine you. We'll take your physical history, and then we'll go on physical examination. And then we'll see a specific local examination, how it is, what is the intensity of the pain, your flexion and extension, when does the pain come. And then we'll go into for like investigations of the X-ray of the knee. Then if further reading, we'll go into much more advanced investigations, and we'll have a consultation with our orthopedician too. And then further on, we can find out what is the pathology causing the pain, and then we can give you adequate treatment.
Thank you, sir, for answering this question. So our next question is from Rukmini madam. She is asking that osteoarthritis knee pain, cold or hot fermentation, which is better?
Osteoarthritis of the knees is a very, very, very common entity in our South Indian population, where every 1 in 10 people, or rather all the women crossing the age of 50 years, suffer with osteoarthritis, and they feel that they're trying to live with osteoarthritis. So nowadays there is a advanced treatment, as I told you, the interventional pain management. We give certain blocks to the knee, where the pain relief for the knee is gone, where the pain which is gone, the knee is gone totally. This is done by a cold radiofrequency thermocoagulation of the knee, where people don't need to go for surgeries. Of course, there are grading of surgeries. We need to evaluate you. We need to take an X-ray. We need to say the stage of osteoarthritis, grade 1, 2, 3. If it's in a mild grade where you don't require a surgery, you can always come to us, and we can give you it's actually a day care procedure. We can give you a block, and it has, some people have permanent solutions too. So regarding the fermentation, hot fermentation is better, but it is all very temporary. Just for probably just the evening is going to help you. It's not going to help you in long term.
Yeah. She has another question for you, sir. That question is ultrasound therapy. How does it help?
Ultrasound is similar to the fermentation. How your hot fermentation, how much of it does, it's going to be the same with ultrasound too. So those therapies are just very minimal. Maybe a maximum of 24 hours is going to help you. All these therapies require multimodal approach, or a permanent solution like a radiofrequency thermocoagulation. Yeah.
So our next question, sir. How long one can take pregabalin for neuropathic pain, especially for diabetic patients?
So we need to, for diabetic patients, they do suffer from a lot of neuropathic pain. But pregabalin does help. It's a wonderful drug. It do help. But what is the main thing is that you can't take it for a very long time. So you need to get your sugars under control. People with uncontrolled diabetics, they do suffer with these kind of pains. So you need to get your correct initial pathology. Your sugar is the main reason. You need to get that under control, and then slowly you can taper the drug also accordingly, pregabalin. But not advised not to take it on long term.
Thank you, sir. Our next person is from Budan, sir. He is asking, please say something about referred pain. How can it be differentiated by a normal person? And which are the serious ones to take medical help immediately?
Referred pain is usually a pain which is associated with a part of the body. It starts there and referred to another region of the body. For example, your low back pain. The low back pain starts on the lower back of your body, and then referred to either your limbs, either of the limbs, either right leg or left leg. So if it's such a condition, you need to come to your doctor immediately to find out what is the reason, because it's compressing some part of the nerve, and we don't know how severe it is going to be. It can be very dangerous too. It can cause paraplegia also. So you need to come to your doctor immediately to find out what is the reason, why is there such a kind of pain or referred pain. So you should come and consult a doctor.
Yes, sir. Our next question, sir. Does ultrasound reduce inflammation?
Ultrasound necessarily doesn't reduce the inflammation, and inflammation may be due to infection or any other injury or tissue damage. So we need to find out what is the reason, and accordingly we need to do. Just it's not correct to just reduce the pain, giving you pain medication or pain therapies. You need to find out the pathology too.
Sir, a few minutes before we just asked one question from Aruna Amrut ma'am, who told the left knee pain was there. So she was taking Kaimural and Hefina. So she's saying she is from Mumbai. So where should she go? She'll go in pain management clinic or anesthetic? She should.
The pain management clinics are generally managed by anesthetists. So she can go approach a pain management specialist who is a generally anesthetist who do a specialist training in pain management. So it's better to see a pain management specialist.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for attending all of the questions.
Yeah.
And we are getting questions till now.
Yeah.
So definitely we'll get back to you, sir,
Sure.
with the questions.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing such a wonderful and informative topics. I think everyone should get benefited so much. Till now we are getting few questions. We'll surely attend the questions and we'll get back to you, sir.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much. So here we came at the end of the session. So I want to thank all of you on behalf of Indian Prostate Cancer Foundation and the entire team. I want to tell a very hearty vote of thanks to the honorable delegates who blessed us with their presence and took out valuable time for all of your busy schedule. I would also like to extend a special thanks to all of the speakers who inspired us as the valuable inputs required during the pandemic situation. My hearty thanks to my fellow team, Mr. Anand and Mr. Rishikesh, to bring out for the partner and hosting the program. I also wish to express our gratitude to our director, Dr. Ananthakishnan Shivaraman and Mrs. Gayatri Ananthakishnan for providing and encouraging us and their constant support to the organizing such as good event. Finally, I would like to thank our wonderful delegates across the globe who have showed their enthusiasm to participate in this program and make it successful. Thank you all of you for making this program possible, and we will surely attend and we will organize next month also our IPCF support group member, and we will always inform you about the program details. So please be with us for our next program also. Thank you for joining with us. Thank you so much.